So that's why this case is what it is. But let's bring in our think tank tonight, because I have some questions for the think tank regarding the trial of these four officers. Let's introduce our guest tonight. Joining us, Renee Hill, great criminal defense attorney in the Bronx. Also with us, Lawrence Zimmerman, Atlanta, Georgia, great criminal defense attorney, and is the president of the Criminal Defense Attorney Association of Georgia. Also with us, Christa Ramey from Los Angeles, great trial attorney. All right, folks, let's start with the video. Renee Hill, will it be admissible at trial, and what does it prove?
Well, it'll definitely be admissible at trial, Vinny. This is from the body cam of the officers that were involved in this, that were on the scene. This is discoverable material. It will be admissible at trial. And what it's going to show is the reaction of the crowd, what they were able to see, and how the officers were behaving so nonchalantly, and how they were throwing out such, sarcastic remarks, and just having a complete disregard for Mr. Floyd's life.
Lawrence Zimmerman, does this video help prove aiding and abetting murder for the officers who's wearing this camera, Officer Tutao?
If we're going to base it just on watching this video, it is definitely not helpful for this officer. Don't do drugs, kids. Being real flippant and laughing. It wasn't. I mean, there's no kids out there. They're all adults. Why would you even say that? And that other gentleman kept saying, "Check his pulse. He can't breathe. What are you doing?" It was some jujitsu move. I train in the same place you guys do. Get off his neck. That's pretty bad. I mean, I watched a video several times. It was pretty disgusting, honestly. It does not help that police officer in a defense. I don't think so, based on just the video.
All right, Christa Ramey, let's get a little more specific now. What exactly does it prove? Aiding and abetting, okay? He's got to be, in his mindset, he has to believe that Chauvin is committing a crime, and in his mind, what he is doing is, my purpose right now is to help him commit the crime. Do you believe that's what his intention is in his actions that we're seeing through his body cam?
I think that we saw a lot of that, actually, Vinny. What we saw is a point in time, which was particularly troubling for me, is when Officer Tao went to the back of the vehicle to get the hobble device. I don't know if our viewers know what a hobble is, but when the victim is in a prone position and he's being tied up by his legs, and then that is then connected to the back of his handcuffs behind his back, and he's laying on his chest with a knee in his neck. Before he got out of the car, this man was telling everybody he couldn't breathe. He was clearly having a panic attack. This evidence of this officer going to get this hobble device, to me, is one of the most profound pieces of evidence that I saw in this video. It shows that there was reckless disregard for Mr. Floyd's life.
Okay, wait. Let me hold you right there. Reckless disregard, different than murder, right? Reckless disregard. They've got to prove that Chauvin intended to assault him. He knew that Chauvin intended to assault him, and he knew his actions would help aid Chauvin assault him, because it's kind of like a felony murder case. Is that what you're saying? Or are you saying this is reckless behavior, or is this intentional behavior?
I think this is intentional behavior, Vinny. What I saw with getting that hobble device, there is a lot of evidence out there. I've had these cases against police officers. When someone cannot breathe and you are hobbling them, that's hog tying in common vernacular, with their chest to the ground and their arms like hoisted behind their back with their legs tied to those arms tightly. This is very specific. And when someone is saying they can't breathe and this is what you want to do to them, you want to hobble them, this is horrific to me.
Renee Hill, how did the prosecution prove his intent? His intent was to help someone who he knew had the intent of hurting and assaulting George Floyd. Put it together for me.
they're going to be able to show that Officer Tao knew what his fellow officer was doing. He was there. He helped when they were trying to get him into the police car initially, but then now he's involved because he's keeping the civilians on the sidewalk. He's even pushing some of them back at certain times, keeping them away, preventing them from getting closer to Mr. Floyd and the other officers. So he is acting in concert with those officers.
Is he doing that?
Allow...
Is he doing that because he wants to? Is he doing that to further allow Chauvin to commit a crime? Is that his purpose? To make sure that Chauvin can complete his crime?
Absolutely, because he knew what Chauvin was doing. Everyone out there could see that Chauvin was on his neck. The people were screaming, and Mr. Floyd was screaming. And yes, so he knew what was happening. Absolutely.
Lawrence Zimmerman, prosecutors will argue that he knew Chauvin was committing a crime. He intended to allow him to continue to commit that crime while he is holding off a crowd of 8 people with video cameras.
You know, Vinny, my problem
is that the argument?
Yeah, I mean, my problem is he just doesn't seem to really care about much, and he's just making snide remarks. People are concerned. Crowds gathering, they're upset, they're watching what's going on, and he just doesn't care. He's just letting Chauvin do whatever he wants. I mean, I just have problems. I'm sure there's more to the story, maybe. I don't know. I haven't seen all the evidence, but it doesn't look good on that video.
I think everyone has a problem with, Lawrence, everyone's got a problem with all 4 officers. I'm trying to take this thing into the courtroom and trying to get a conviction, and I know I've got to prove the intent here. Are you seeing evidence of the actual intent to knowingly aid and abet and say, listen, I know Chauvin is committing a crime. I want to make sure my actions aid and help him and do everything I can to make sure he can commit that crime. Are you seeing that? Is that an argument the jury is going to believe beyond a reasonable doubt?
I think the prosecution is going to make the argument that his lack of care for what's going on, his just blasé attitude is his intent, and he's aiding and abetting him by just acting like so nonchalant that nothing's going on for 10 minutes while there's a guy on his neck. He's saying, I can't breathe the whole entire time. And it's kind of ridiculous. Yeah, that's going to be their argument, and maybe they'll prove it that way.
But it was more than that.
He has a duty to protect and serve. He didn't help the situation by keeping the crowd away and by allowing Chauvin to behave the way that he did. He didn't try to stop him. He didn't try to move the officer over, tell him, lift up off of his neck. He didn't do any of that. He absolutely aided and abetted by allowing Chauvin to continue to behave in that manner, by not stopping him, and by keeping the crowd away.
But it's more than that. He was actually assisting. He was actually assisting him, though. It's more than just being nonchalant or not caring. He was assisting. That is what I saw in this video. I saw assistance. And so for the aiding and abetting crime, I think the evidence is stronger by watching this video. You have a paramedic talking about check the pulse. And he's like, doesn't even give a crap. And then you watch these other videos that were released earlier in the week, and you know that they were concerned about it, and they realized that there was no pulse. But yet, Chauvin continued to place his knee in George Floyd's neck. And so these officers were acting in concert. They knew what they were doing, and they were all assisting one another to make sure that that goal was accomplished.
And what's with the joke? Don't do drugs, kid? What, he thinks he's like Bill Murray or something. I mean, it was just, that to me is just so offensive. I mean, that shows his intent right there. He doesn't care.
All right. We'll talk more about it, and we're going to hear from the 13th juror later on in the hour. We'll revisit it. In the